Every 2 years, an astonishing phenomenon occurs in Japan. 1 million people vanish from public records. Meanwhile, across the globe, China is on track to see its population cut in half by the end of this century. Italy now holds the distinction of having a median age of 48. Birth rates are plummeting almost everywhere, leading to a startling question. Is humanity slowly fading away? What's driving these changes? And just how severe is the situation? For hundreds of thousands of years, human population growth was a slow crawl. Disease, famine, and war acted as natural brakes, keeping numbers in check. Then came the Industrial Revolution, a turning point that unleashed unprecedented progress. This era of exponential growth saw the global population explode to 6 billion by 1999, then surged to 8 billion just 24 years later. And the upward trajectory isn't stopping yet. Global numbers will continue to rise for at least another 60 years. But beneath this growth lies a hidden truth. People have largely stopped having babies. To sustain a population, every couple needs to have an average of 2 children, just enough to replace themselves. A number higher than that leads to growth, while anything lower spells decline. When fertility rates drop significantly below this replacement level, the decline accelerates dramatically. Consider South Korea, one of the global hubs of pop culture, with a fertility rate of just 0.8 children per woman in 2022, the lowest in the world. At this rate, 100 South Koreans of childbearing age today would collectively have 40 children. Those children would go on to have 16 of their own, who would then have just 6. If these patterns persist, the population of young people in South Korea could plummet by 94% within a century. Yet, even with such low birth rates, the country's overall population wouldn't shrink to zero. It would instead revert to levels seen decades ago. In 1950, South Korea had a population of about 20 million. Today, it stands at 52 million, and by 2100 it's projected to settle at around 24 million. But the real concern isn't just the numbers, it's the composition. In 1950, the median age in South Korea was 18. Today, it's 45. By the year 2100, it's expected to reach 59. South Korea would transform into a nation dominated by senior citizens, and it's far from alone in this demographic shift. China is witnessing one of the fastest population reversals in history, a trend that now seems irreversible. Decades of rapid industrialization, urbanization, and rising incomes have reshaped cultural norms, leading families to prefer fewer children. On top of that, the infamous one-child policy, introduced to curb population growth, left a legacy of sustained low fertility rates. With a current fertility rate of just 1.16 births per woman, 100 young Chinese today will shrink to a mere 20 within 4 generations. Even Japan, long seen as a cautionary tale of low fertility, now has a higher birth rate than China. Europe faces a slower but steady decline, with immigration acting as a temporary buffer. While many countries in Asia and Eastern Europe experience steep drops, nations like Germany have managed to sustain their populations slightly better due to the influx of immigrants. However, even in Europe, the fertility rates of immigrants tend to align with those of the local population within 2 to 3 generations, limiting their long-term impact. Eastern Europe in particular faces unique challenges, as many young people migrate to wealthier Western nations, leaving their home countries with rapidly aging populations. In Latin America, fertility rates fell below replacement levels around 2015, signaling another significant shift. In the United States, immigration has been the key driver of population growth. Without it, even one of the world's most dynamic economies would likely face a population stagnation. Meanwhile, Parts of the Middle East, North Africa, and Sub-Saharan Africa still maintain high fertility rates. These regions evoke the same overpopulation concerns that gripped the world when Asia experienced rapid growth in the mid-20th century. However, recent trends suggest these fears might be unfounded. As African nations develop, their fertility rates are dropping faster than expected. For instance, projections for Nigeria's population in 2100 were revised downward by nearly 200 million, from 733 million to 546 million. It's increasingly likely that Africa will follow East Asia's trajectory, with fertility rates eventually dipping below replacement levels. This global trend of declining fertility rates and aging populations has far-reaching implications. A society thrives when it has enough people in the prime of their lives. Young and middle-aged adults who drive economic growth, support the elderly, and innovate. Historically, a large base of young workers sustained smaller groups of retirees. But as the balance shifts, the strain on younger generations intensifies. In a world dominated by seniors, the economic and social challenges become immense. Imagine a society where most people are over 60. The financial burden on the young would be crushing, even in the wealthiest nations. Healthcare costs would skyrocket as the aging population's needs overwhelm the system. Pension funds, already stretched thin in many places, could collapse entirely. Seniors who no longer contribute as much to the economy generate the majority of healthcare expenses. The imbalance between those producing wealth and those consuming it could lead to longer working lives, increased poverty, and severe strain on public services. The effects of an aging population are already visible. In China, 11 out of 31 provinces are running pension deficits. The country grew old before it grew rich, and now its working-age population is expected to shrink by 200 million people by 2050, a loss equivalent to the entire working-age population of the United States today. This decline will ripple through every aspect of society, from the economy to infrastructure. Population decline doesn't just affect the economy, it also takes a toll on the infrastructure that underpins modern life. Roads, utilities, schools, and public transport systems are designed to serve large numbers of people. When populations shrink, these systems become harder to maintain, and their costs don't scale down with the number of users. This creates a vicious cycle. As people leave, infrastructure deteriorates, making it even harder to attract new residents or retain the remaining population. You can already see this dynamic playing out in parts of the world. In East Germany, for example, reunification brought significant population loss to many towns and cities. As industries disappeared, so did jobs and income, leaving behind crumbling roads and abandoned buildings. In Japan, the countryside is dotted with ghost towns, once thriving villages now empty and overgrown, their schools and homes slowly decaying. These places tell a stark story about what happens when people leave and the resources to maintain a community vanish along with them. But perhaps the most striking misconception about population decline is the belief that fewer people will lead to greater prosperity and abundance. It's easy to imagine that fewer humans would mean more resources for everyone, but reality paints a different picture. Prosperity isn't simply a matter of having resources, it's the result of human ingenuity, collaboration, and effort. People don't just consume resources, they create wealth, drive innovation, and develop new ways to solve problems. Without enough people contributing to society, the progress we take for granted begins to falter. One of the greatest dangers for aging societies is the potential for governments to cater disproportionately to the interests of their older populations. In nations dominated by senior citizens, policies may increasingly focus on preserving wealth and stability at the expense of innovation and forward-thinking initiatives. This could lead to a reluctance to invest in solutions to pressing global issues like climate change, which require bold action and a willingness to take risks. At the same time, there's a persistent belief that declining populations could help address the environmental crises facing the planet. After all, fewer people should mean less strain on natural resources, right? Unfortunately, this isn't the case. The world's population will continue to grow for at least 60 more years, and by the time it begins to decline significantly, the damage caused by climate change and resource depletion will already be well underway. Solving these problems requires immediate action and innovative thinking, not the slow process of population reduction. If fewer people won't solve these challenges, what about immigration? It's often presented as a straightforward solution to population decline, but the reality is far more complex. While immigration can help fill workforce gaps and stabilize economies in the short term, it's not a sustainable fix in the long run. Birth rates are dropping worldwide, meaning fewer countries will have surplus populations willing to migrate in the future. To maintain stable populations through immigration alone, nations would need a constant influx of newcomers, a strategy that's unlikely to succeed indefinitely. Immigration also comes with its own challenges. Cultural and societal tensions can arise when groups with different values and traditions meet, often leading to backlash and policies that restrict immigration. These tensions are universal, appearing in countries across the globe, and ignoring them only deepens divides, empowers demagogues, and fuels xenophobia. While immigration can bring immense benefits, including economic growth and cultural enrichment, managing it requires thoughtful policies that balance the needs of both immigrants and host communities. Countries like the United States, built on the promise of opportunity and the hard work of immigrants, are uniquely positioned to benefit from global migration. Nations that attract ambitious, talented individuals from around the world can gain a significant advantage, fostering innovation and economic dynamism. However, relying on immigration alone to address population decline ignores the underlying issue. People are having fewer children, and this trend isn't reversing. Interestingly, the drop in birth rates isn't necessarily a sign of decline. It's often a reflection of progress. As societies become wealthier and women gain greater access to education and opportunities, they tend to have fewer children. In many ways, this is a testament to how far humanity has come. Women are freer to make choices about their lives, and families no longer feel compelled to have large numbers of children to ensure survival. Yet, even in countries where women want more children, the reality doesn't always align with their desires. In Europe, for instance, the average number of children women want is around 2.3, well above the actual fertility rates. This gap reveals the challenges many face in building families. Modern life often places enormous pressure on parents, particularly mothers, who are expected to balance careers and family without compromising either. Men, while increasingly involved in parenting, still face societal expectations to be primary providers, adding another layer of stress. The cost of raising children, limited access to affordable childcare, and inadequate parental leave policies further discourage people from having larger families. In many developed countries, the gender pay gap is less about outright discrimination and more about the economic sacrifices women make when they become mothers. Parenthood often means career setbacks for at least one parent, a reality that highlights the structural barriers families face. At the same time, cultural shifts toward individualism have reshaped how people approach relationships and family. Today, there's a greater emphasis on personal freedom, exploration, and achieving happiness. People are marrying later, focusing on careers, and often choosing to have smaller families or none at all. And that's okay. No one owes their country children. The decision to have a family is deeply personal, influenced by a complex web of societal, economic, and individual factors. Efforts to increase birth rates have seen little success so far. No country has found a formula to significantly boost fertility, but there are steps that can make life easier for parents. Free and accessible childcare, financial support for families, and affordable housing are all measures that could reduce the barriers to parenthood. Most importantly, parenthood needs to stop being viewed as a career obstacle. Societies must become more family-friendly, creating environments where raising children feels like a natural and supported part of life. Even simple cultural shifts can make a difference. The next time you're on a flight and hear a baby crying, resist the urge to be annoyed. Instead, remember that raising children is hard, and parents are doing their best. Supporting families doesn't just mean implementing policies, it also means fostering compassion and understanding. Humanity isn't on the brink of extinction just because we're having fewer babies. The changing age and composition of our societies present challenges, but they're not insurmountable. History is filled with examples of humanity overcoming seemingly impossible obstacles. Why would this be the challenge we can't solve? The key lies in recognizing the underlying factors and adapting to the new realities of our world. It's not about forcing people to have children or clinging to old ways of thinking. It's about creating societies where families feel supported, individuals have freedom, and the future feels bright. If you want to get basic overview of anything, provide your thoughts and intentions in comments section. We will provide and serve you, and subscribe our channel to get more information in less time.